At exactly 7 a.m., every alarm clock in the city began to ring. But something felt wrong. The room was still dark. Not early morning dark, but midnight dark. Mia opened her eyes and stared at the ceiling. For a moment, she thought she had woken up too early. But the clock beside her bed said otherwise. She climbed out of bed, walked slowly to the window, and pulled the curtain aside. Outside, the world was supposed to be glowing with morning light. But there was no sunrise. The sky was completely black. Streetlights were still burning. Cars moved through the darkness with their headlights on, as if the morning had never arrived. Across the city, people stepped onto balconies, opened front doors, and looked upward. No one understood what they were seeing. It was morning, but the world still looked asleep. Mia's mother turned on the news. At first, the anchor spoke calmly. They called it an unusual atmospheric event. A strange darkness. A temporary delay in sunlight. But then the reports came from everywhere. New York, London, Tokyo, Paris. Every city was showing the same impossible image. Morning had arrived on the clocks, but not in the sky. Some people laughed nervously and said it was probably an eclipse. Others blamed smoke, clouds, satellites, or a mistake in the weather system. Everyone wanted a simple answer. But by 10 a.m., the sky had not changed. The sun had not risen. The laughter faded. People stopped joking. And a quiet fear began to move through the streets. Schools stayed open at first, but no one could focus. Children sat beneath flickering classroom lights, staring out the windows, waiting for something bright to appear. Even the animals seemed confused. Birds stayed silent in the trees. Dogs refused to leave doorways. The natural rhythm of the morning had been broken. By noon, people began to panic. Supermarkets filled with nervous families buying batteries, water, candles, and flashlights. No one knew how long the darkness would last. Scientists around the world searched for answers. It was not an eclipse. It was not a storm. It was not smoke in the atmosphere. The sun was still there, but somehow, its light was not reaching Earth. Then the first systems began to fail. Solar farms went silent. Cities switched to emergency power. Buildings dimmed their lights to save energy. As the hours passed, the temperature began to drop. Windows fogged over. Breath turned white in the air. The darkness was no longer just frightening. It was becoming cold. Traffic slowed across the world. Planes were grounded. Trains stopped at dark stations. The modern world, built around the certainty of sunrise, began to hesitate. That evening, Mia sat beside her mother with a flashlight between them. She looked toward the window and asked the question no adult knew how to answer. "Mom, did the sun forget us?" Her mother tried to smile, but her eyes were full of fear. She pulled Mia close and said, "No, sweetheart. We just have to wait." All across the city, families gathered around small circles of light. Phones became flashlights. Kitchen tables became shelters. People who had barely spoken before began checking on their neighbors. In one apartment building, children began drawing pictures of the sun. Yellow circles. Orange rays. Blue skies. Things they had seen every day, and suddenly missed more than anything. The night stretched on. But it no longer felt like a normal night. It felt endless. A silence covered the world, and for the first time, humanity understood how small it really was. The next morning, people stepped outside before 7 a.m. No one wanted to be alone when the hour came. They stood in streets, on rooftops, and in open fields, watching the horizon. Then, at exactly 7 a.m., a thin line of gold appeared at the edge of the world. At first, no one made a sound. They were afraid to believe it. Slowly, the light grew stronger. It touched the windows, the streets, the trees, and the faces of people who had spent the night wondering if they would ever see morning again. Mia held her mother's hand and watched the sun rise. And in that moment, the world finally understood, sunrise was never ordinary. It was a miracle that had been happening every morning, and we had simply forgotten to notice.